today I'm joined by the wonderful Emme Lentino, and I'm just going to be firing a few questions at her and we're just going to be having a chat. The best way to start this would be, what kind of brought you into the music industry, or who brought you into the music industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thanks so much, Alyssa, for having me on the show. So I started singing since I was a little girl, performing, writing music when I was little, probably not the best songs in the world, but I thought they were, decent enough. And went on to perform for opening of libraries and museums and state fairs, and all the way up until high school, did a lot of theater and performance. And then I think it was probably later on when I lived in LA and New York that I really started becoming an independent artist and songwriter.
You mentioned how you've been writing ever since you were young, and you said not all of the songs were great, but was there sort of a song that stands out to you that made you think, okay, I'm actually going to take this seriously now and pursue it?
Absolutely. When I was 10, I wrote my first, I think, full-length song with a bridge and everything. And that was the time when I realized it not only was music healing, but it was also something that I really felt like I was meant to do. My cousin passed away, and I took obviously took the death very, very hard. I was 10 and she was 13, super close. And so I didn't know how to describe how I felt except by writing a song. And that was where I was like, okay, music can really be a way that you can express stuff that you can't normally talk about. So yeah, I would say that's it's called God's Little Angels.
Sort of your songwriting process. I know obviously some people say there isn't a process, but is there a method you always fall back on when sort of you have a writer's block, something that gets you out of the writer's block?
Yeah, definitely. I think getting out in nature is always something helps me get into the right headspace, especially if I'm stuck on like a melodic riff and or lyrics. Just kind of changing the scenery helps me every time.
You said you've performed in a lot of sort of events, opening libraries, museums, all sorts. Is there a standout gig or event that you have performed at that's kind of been in your memory as your favorite sort of gig?
Yeah, I think it was when I did the V8 Supercars gig. I performed, I think it was like over 4 million people, not just in the stands, but also national. It was national broadcast in both Australia and New Zealand. And I was singing live. And so very high pressure. I was singing the national anthem in Māori, English, and the Australian national anthem. No music. I chose to do it without the background music. So yeah, I would say that was probably the most intense experience, but absolutely thrilling because it did go well. That's always the catch, right? But yeah, I would say that was probably the most magical moment singing live.
And kind of linked with that, it's two questions in one. What is probably your venue that you always wanted to perform in, and a country that you've always wanted to perform in as well?
Definitely London. I've recorded there once, and I've always wanted to perform, and it's at Wembley Stadium. That's my dream. I had the honor of going to a couple of shows there while I was in London, and it was amazing. And I remember being there going, wow, I cannot imagine how awesome it would be to get up there and perform. So yeah, that would be a dream for sure.
And you said how watching people in shows has kind of inspired you. Is there a show that stands out to you as sort of the one that inspired you the most?
Oh, there's several. But if I could say, if I were to narrow it down to just a singer-songwriter, I think Sarah McLachlan. I saw her in New York and as well as in San Diego. And her performance technique, she sounded just like she did on the album. She was just so engaging. I felt like she was singing to us in her living room. So I would say Sarah McLachlan, and probably Jimmy Eats World. So that's an indie band that I heard in San Diego, and they're amazing performers.
If there was any artist that you would collab with in the future, who would it be?
Well, I've always been a Radiohead fan, so that would be amazing. Putting it out there, I'd love to collaborate with them. And probably on a totally different scale, Dolly Parton would be really interesting to collaborate with. Yeah. I think she's super cool and hilarious and glitzy and glam, and she's just who she is. And then Sarah McLachlan, because I've always loved her music and who she is. Yeah.
And when you've been writing music, is there a lyric at the moment that's kind of standing out to you as kind of your current life, I guess, or like a favorite lyric that's keeping you going at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's from my latest single, Oceanside. And there's a line in the second verse that says, and you'd know just what to say when I call you super late. Those were warmer days. Those were warmer days. And so I think about that often when you really care about someone, whether it's a friendship or a love interest, that you could call them at 3 a.m. and they're the person that knows what to say at that time. Not like, why are you calling me? But, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
And I think about how special that is, especially in this obviously interesting time of the pandemic. Like who are your people? Who's the special someone that you'll call late at night that'll just understand what to say to you?
Funny you mentioned the pandemic, because I was literally about to move on to that.
Oh, were you?
Yes. I didn't know how to bring it up though, because obviously the pandemic's such a dreaded conversation at the moment. But
yeah.
Obviously we've been in this pandemic for a year now.
Yeah.
How has
Totally.
it kind of affected you as an artist, and how have you overcome those obstacles?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I think it certainly has affected all of us around the world. All around the world. In different ways. Sorry, you lost me for a second.
No worries.
And my dad was calling. Hi, Dad. And but I think it's affected us in different ways. But I think for me, some of the plans that I had about singing overseas, I go to Tamworth every year in Australia. I had a show planned. I had gigs, in America, and obviously those didn't happen. I also had a project in the UK. So immediately it was just a change of obviously plans. But I feel that I've really diversified in my artistry. I have a lot more online presence than I did prior. And I think connecting with people in a virtual way has become so much more important, both in personal and in my art, that I feel like quite thankful, because it put me in a place where I had to pause and reset and go, okay, what is it that I really want to do? And what do I want to focus on? And I'm quite thankful, because I don't know if I would have had that opportunity had COVID not happened. Yeah. So kind of bittersweet, I guess.
And once hopefully this pandemic is eventually over, whenever that is, what's kind of the first thing you're dying to do, whether that's personally or musically?
I think just being able to freely travel to see my family. They still live in America. I live in New Zealand. That would be the first thing, and without there being any worries or quarantine on both sides. And then I think just getting out and performing again, being able to go on tour and open for amazing artists and collaborate in real time with artists. Like, I'd love to go and see you guys, but it would just be neat to be able to have that possibility. Whereas I understand now that's not as easy.
And obviously you have mentioned that you'd love to tour and that, and I kind of don't want you to cop out and say the same artists that you want to collab with. But if you were to support any artist on tour, whether that's a huge arena tour or a tiny little venue tour, who would you want to support?
Ed Sheeran.
Oh, okay. Good choice.
Yeah. Yeah. He's an amazing songwriter. Just every song, I'm like, does the guy have, like, every song is gold. It's just so good. Yeah, that would be. Sorry?
Like, he works with so many people as well. Like, half the songs that you hear on the radio, you wouldn't even realize he's written. He's that impressive.
So impressive and so diverse.
Yeah.
And yeah, so definitely that would be a dream.
Okay.
Ed, I'm waiting.
Of course. And kind of going on to something a little bit deeper, but I guess the question that we tend to ask everyone is, how do you deal with hate, if you do receive any? I mean, everyone on social media does tend to receive some form of hate at some point. But how do you kind of deal with it and overcome it? For
me, it's probably, I've had a couple of things on YouTube, and they weren't, I wouldn't even say they were hate. They were just not as, like, someone was like, this song could be a hit, but it just, there's just something about it that I just don't know what it is, or it might be the thumbs down that you might get and you don't know why. But I think for me, it's like, I understand that everyone has an opinion. And at the end of the day, every single person is on a journey and they all have their story, just like you and I do. And so, yeah, I kind of, even though I'm such a people pleaser and things hurt my feelings, I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, I just accept that it's going to happen. And it's my attitude. Like, am I going to make or break my day based on someone else's, I don't know, thumbs down or something? Or am I going to go, okay, well, that's someone else's opinion and let it roll off my back? And I tend to do that more, I think, in this year especially, because I think, wow, you know, what a gift that we get to do what we love to do. Yeah. And maybe someone's just having a bad day. And so I just give them extra love. That's what I do. I just like reach out to them and say, hey, if it's someone on social media that might make a comment or something, and I'll just say, hey, how are you? And 9 times out of 10, that person ends up following me, or we have some sort of connection, because I think it is about how you choose to react to stuff. Like, yeah, that would be my answer. Very long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
Perfect answer. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's almost like killing someone with kindness. If they're going to be mean to you, why are you going to give into it? Exactly.
Yeah. Online wars, there's no space in my mind for them. I always want to have peace, and I try to understand, you know, even if it's difficult, I try to understand where everyone's coming from. So, yeah. And music is healing. So I don't think anyone can deny that.
Yeah, of course. And just a couple more questions. I've realized I've a lot at you in very short space of time. But obviously during these times, especially, there's been a lot of people suddenly realizing how much they want to get into the music industry and start releasing and things. What sort of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say to someone that's really wanting to get into the music industry is to really know what it is that you are about as a person, and what kind of music and people you want to involve yourself with. I think making a plan is really important. Whether or not you stick to the plan, I think it's just a good exercise, and it's responsible, especially when you want to go out and record, and you know, that takes money, and you can quickly spend money you don't have if you don't plan. So I think just taking those steps, taking time to get the right producer, have the right kind of songs, and build your community. Yeah. You know, don't be afraid to reach out to people from all over the world and say, hey, do you want to collaborate with me? Or I think being able to reach out to other people is really important, especially if you're someone that's shy. I think you can kind of build up your confidence over time. Yeah. And become who you're meant to be.
The last question I have for you is, do you have many plans at the moment going into the rest of 2021? Obviously, New Zealand, as I've heard, is a lot safer at the moment, which very lucky. Does that mean sort of plans have started opening up more for you? Like, what's sort of in the works that you can mention?
Yeah, so ironically, we are now in a lockdown.
Oh, again?
Yeah, it just happened. So it's kind of hard to say, because it's supposed to be a short-term one, but I guess from where I sit, I mean, I'm still making plans as if, you know, the whole world is going to eventually open up, because I think it's great to be able to do that and to make those plans. So for me, it's I've got some collaborations with some amazing artists that aren't from New Zealand. They live overseas, so it's going to be a virtual collaboration. So I'm really excited about that. I'm doing lots of stuff with TV and film, and executive producer of different films. And so I think just I'm staying really busy and active, and living as if things will change eventually. And I'm getting pretty satisfied with what I'm doing. So that's cool.
I think the best way to be is to plan as if COVID doesn't exist anymore. I think it's the only way we can stay hopeful at this point. But thanks so much for coming on and speaking to me.
Thank you, Alyssa. And thanks to everyone on your team. You guys are awesome. This was the first time you've shown disrespect.